Prepare to enter the whiplash, Doctor. Please stop. Hello, Whovians, and welcome to my latest Doctor Who rant. Although today, it's a major rant on Timelash, or Whiplash, as I like to call it. Because even a regular rant can't cover this shit. And once again, thank you to Nicola's Payne for lending me the DVD. God, this one is going to be tough. Okay, so the story of Timelash. I mean, sorry, I have to curl up every time I say story because the word story really does not apply to this. But for what it's worth, on the planet Carful and in 1885 Scotland, the Doctor and Perry, together with a young man named Herbert, become entangled with the machinations of the despotic Borad. That is literally the synopsis of this story. What is wrong with this season? Season 22 has been a plethora of bad stories. Timelash. I hate this story. And again, the word story does not apply to this. This is one of the most messy, convoluted scripts they have ever written for this show. This is one of the reasons why Michael Gray was going to pull the plug on this show. And you know what? I can't blame him, to be honest, because this story is an utter mess. Nothing makes sense. The person that wrote this story wasn't even a writer. He was an ambulance driver. His name was Glenn McCoy. Thankfully, he has no relation to Sylvester McCoy. I mean, I certainly hope not anyway. And he just proves that he cannot write for shit. I mean, I did not really understand the story at all. Even reading the synopsis, I still don't understand the story. The basic gist of it is that the villain, Borad, wants to mate with Perry. Why? It's a totally messy and confusing plot. It doesn't make any sense. And my goodness me, this is one of the campiest looking stories they have ever given us. My God, it is laughably bad. There's that creature in the cave that keeps trying to attack Perry. It looks like somebody's, just manning a puppet. It looks so silly. And Perry herself doesn't get anything to do in this story. She's just strapped up. She's totally mistreated by the Doctor. He's just bickering, and it just gets worse and worse. The dynamic between the Doctor and Perry is just so bad because there'll be a story when they're not too bad, and then there'll be this story where they're just constantly arguing, and she calls him out on his fault, and he goes, "Bad! Colin is being so over the top in this story. He really is. It's not the actor's fault. It's the script. The script is just awful. And I feel sorry for Nicola Bryant. She is clearly the best person in the cast, and she is trying her absolute best. to make this work, but oh, it's just so frustrating. I mean, this story, once again, it's 2 45-minute episodes. It is too padded out. It's too long. It just never gets going. Like, the story makes no sense. I just feel so bad. I mean, they basically, I mean, I've always said in the previous reviews, they're treating Perry like a sex object. In this story, they literally hammer that. They're like, Perry is just, you know, a sexual object that is going to be used by the villain. It's not really appropriate for children, and it just really infuriates me because she's wasted in this story. This is probably her worst story because she just doesn't get anything to do. She's strapped up. She's strangled once again. She has a neck chain and there's a guard who's pulling her around. It's just, oh, it's embarrassing. The guards themselves look fucking awful because they look like people that like are beekeepers, you know, with wasp nests and something. They're wearing helmets that cover their faces, and it's like that material that beekeepers have. I don't know how else to describe it, but it is really, really bad. The villain sucks. Oh, what? Did you think I was going to make any allowances? Well, no. Borad as the villain. Quite simply, awful. He sits in his chair, does nothing for the entire story until the end. And when he does actually appear to be menacing, when he's disposing of other people, he has this gun that turns people old and kills them. What? Where does that come from? It makes absolutely no sense. And the design of Borad is so bad. He looks like a fucking dinosaur who's been run over by a 10-ton truck. Half his face is dinosaur, half his face is human. I don't care. My friend Jack the Film Fanatic calls this story Toilet Rash, and I can understand why. I mean, it's like somebody wrote this and then they wiped their ass with it. I call it Whiplash because, well, it feels like you're being fucking whipped the whole time you're watching it. Colin Baker, you know, I'm sorry, I cannot get into his Doctor. I mean, he has not been given the best scripts at all. In this story, he just annoys me. He's just so over the top. He's so hammy. He's not quite as infuriating as he is in the Twin Dilemma, but it feels like, okay, in the past few stories, he was getting slightly more tolerable, and now we've gone back to how we were at the beginning. It's just, it is just so annoying. He's just really annoying, and I just cannot get behind his Doctor. I'm really sorry. The look of this story is terrible. The cheapness of the sets are really showing here. And when the Doctor goes into the Timelash and he's hanging on the rope and he's sitting on those big crystals and you can see the tinsel on the top of the wall, it is just laughable. It is so bad. It is really cheap. And, you know, it's hard to take this seriously. It really is. And yeah, it's another trip to campy land. I think the supporting cast is shit as well. They give such wooden performances. The villain, Tekka, he's the human villain, played by Paul Darrow. He's alright, but he gets so over the top of points, and he's like, Doctor, prepare your mind for the Timelash! It's just... I'm sorry. I cannot do this anymore. That is literally my feeling watching this story. I feel like I'm being strangled, you know? And don't remind me of that strangling scene from the Twin Dilemma. Oh, God. And David Chandler, who plays Herbert, otherwise known as H.G. Wells, why is he even in the story? He has no place in this story whatsoever. He just tags along for the ride, just so they can have a historical figure. And one other thing. How does the Doctor actually get to 1885? I mean, presumably, he just walks through the Timelash, because there's no other reason to explain it. I mean, they say the TARDIS is there already, and then he just appears out of nowhere. It literally makes no sense. And also at the end, Borad is killed by the Doctor, and then he reappears at the end and has Perry, you know, he holds her by the neck, and he's pointing a gun at everyone. It's so stupid. Like, the continuity is awful. You needed a script supervisor on set to keep the continuity going. Clearly there was no one there. This is a story that is out of control. It's nonsensical. It makes no sense. It is awfully directed. The action scenes are terribly directed by Pennant Roberts. I understand the script is really shit, but at the same time, it's like they didn't even care. They just didn't even try. I mean, John Nathan Turner, you know, the sad thing is, he thinks that this is good enough. He thinks that this is good enough to air on TV. I'm sorry. Give the man a gold star. Honestly, I don't have a lot to say. I'm really I'm just speechless. I'm speechless for the first time. The character of Vina, played by Jean Crowley. Oh god, she is terrible. She is so one-noted. She is awful in this story. This story is honestly just an insult to the show, and it is an insult to the cast who were trying to make this. One other thing I need to mention is there's this android character who has blue face makeup, and he has a yellow wig. And he always talks like this for the entire story. Even a moment where he says something and it's like he speaks singing. He's like, "You will be taken to the Borat." He speaks like this for the entire story. We have to imagine he is singing something. Literally, that's how he talks, and it gets really annoying after a while. It really does. And the story doesn't really build to any kind of crescendo or climax. I think they bring Borat back just to pad out the runtime. And another thing about this story, they have so many scenes in the TARDIS. Like, in the beginning, the Doctor and Perry just bickering in the TARDIS. And once again, it takes them too long to get to the bloody planet, whatever. It takes them too long to get to the meat of the story. This is why the 45-minute format doesn't work for the Colin Baker era. It just doesn't work because they don't know how to pace it. They've got two 45-minute episodes for each. That's quite a long time. So honestly, I think they could have just had maybe one hour episode, or make it an hour and 15 minutes and cut half an hour out, because honestly, the pacing would have been so much better. This story drags for pretty much the entire runtime, but that beginning part, it's just infuriating because Perry is genuinely quite caring and she does care about the Doctor. There's even a scene when he tells her to basically to fuck off, not in so many words, in part 2. She's worrying about him, and he just shoots her down all the time. Like, he's completely condescending and nasty towards her. I just don't appreciate that. The Doctor wouldn't do that. He wouldn't be that nasty. He's adjusted to his new persona by now. He needs to start being nicer. But I know with Colin Baker's Doctor, it's controversial, and I know that's probably not going to happen. So at the end of the day, under actors, over actors, just a campy fuckfest. That's all this is. I can see why this story is hated. Also, the effects of this story are pretty bad. I mean, I've mentioned about the sets, but the computer CGI effects, they just look terrible. They really do. And again, I am forgiving of the classic series up to a point, but by this point, no. I'm sorry. And I know the budget was kind of slashed, to be honest, but it still doesn't excuse the lack of effort that they put in, and that's the worst thing about it. Timelash, this is an easy disaster. This is one of the worst Doctor Who stories I've seen in the classic era, and this is probably one of Colin's worst stories. I don't think it's quite as bad as the Twin Dilemma, because it's not as insulting, but it is just very badly made. It's written, so poorly. It's like they wrote it at a bus stop. It's like Glenn McCoy wrote it the day before he came to work, literally. It's like he was on drugs and he had access to the drugs, because he drives an ambulance, so yeah, I mean, maybe he wasn't on the medical drugs. I digress. So to cap it all off, I'm going to give this story a final rating of 0 out of 10. Nicola Bryant is the only reason to watch this story, and she's wasted. She is totally wasted. She gets nothing to do. So, jog on, as they say in Hot Fuzz. And yeah, that's all I'm going to say about Timelash. I have no desire to rewatch this again. What an awful story. Ugh, God. Terrible, terrible, terrible story. Enough for me to stick my head in the bin. Yeah. I went that far. So next time we come to the final story of this season. Thank God. Revelation of the Daleks. Yes, the Daleks return. Welcome to Campyland, Daleks. Let's see how you do. So yeah, Colin's first, I think probably only story with the Daleks. I don't think he has any other encounters with the Daleks. Well, we'll see in season 23. But I think this could be his only Dalek story. So would I be wrong to be nervous? I don't think so. But anyway, thank you very much for watching this major rant. And what do you think of Timelash? Please comment down below. Let me know what you think. And stay tuned for my review of Revelation of the Daleks. So until next time, I'm Mr. TARDIS11. See you soon. Bye for now.